Hi, I'm Eoin.
And I'm Rachel.
Welcome back and thanks again for tuning in for another episode of No Clients Were Harmed. If you're new here, myself and Rachel are psychotherapists who take our jobs very seriously, but ourselves not at all. We will be talking about the messy, funny, frustrating side of therapy. It's going to be mental health, but let's not get dramatic.
If you are enjoying listening to our conversations, we would love to hear from you with your comments or questions. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and the No Clients Were Harmed website. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow us wherever you're listening. And please do share it with someone who would enjoy listening to us and maybe could do with a bit of a crash course in therapy.
We all have a friend that could do with a crash course in therapy, let's be honest.
We definitely do. Today we are exploring family dynamics, how it leaves its mark and why it's important, and how we can finally break free of all that drama.
And what's in the room with us for this episode is the I don't know that I hear very often from my clients, where they are unsure of what they're feeling, where the reaction comes from, or what they might be carrying into a relationship. For me, the I don't know is a starting point, not an end point.
For sure. Then we'll move into our It's Giving section, and today it's giving the Brady Bunch. Clearly Eoin chose that name and we couldn't think of anything newer or fresher, or that wasn't originating in the dinosaur era.
Yeah. Are you saying I'm not new or fresh? That's what you're saying.
You're definitely not new or fresh. And how we can find ourselves turning into our parents and how very scary and annoying that can be.
I really can see your mother in you. Finally, then we'll go into Spill the Tea, and today we'll be meeting Justine, who is the mother of 2 young daughters. Seeing how they relate is shining a new light onto the role she has found herself in when she was their age.
As usual, we've loads to get through, so let's get started on.
What's in the room with us today? So I've no idea what is in the room with us today, or how that I don't know response gets provoked when we were asked questions in therapy. For myself, I've said that I don't know is a starting point and not an end point. And sometimes I hear that I don't know answer and it's an I don't know full stop. I don't know. Let's back away from here. I don't know. I don't want to know. I'm not prepared to look at something. There's a completely different sense if we go into, actually, I don't know. I've never thought about that. Let's explore it. Let's have a look at it.
When you said when therapists ask you questions, I find it interesting in a room when it's a question like, how does that make you feel? I think for us as therapists, it's quite a simple question, but for some, it can feel very loaded. Because I think it can be really hard when someone's sitting in front of you. I've said this before, and asking you questions in a room where it's just you and you know it's about you and it's very clear because that's why you're in therapy, but having to actually feel that in a room can be difficult.
Yeah. And like, I don't know, that question, how do you make it feel? It's such a cliched therapy question. Like, it's the therapist question.
Yeah.
And some therapists shy away from it as much as possible. I find it fairly useful and informative, but there are times where in my head I'm going, I'm going to ask this question now and I don't want to ask this question, but I have to ask the question, so I'm going to ask the question.
Yeah.
How's
it's
that
like a
make
fear
you
of
feel?
sounding like a therapist. I'm like, I've had people say, I know what you're going to ask me, how that makes me feel. I'm like, fuck, I need to come up with another question. Because I'm like, I don't, I think it's just so, the difficulty with that, and particularly if you've been in therapy for quite a while, is sometimes it can be predictable, the stream of questions that are going to be asked when something new comes up for you or a new situation happened during the week. And it's like, how does that make me feel? And this is how it makes me feel. So I think, it can be hard. And
I think when we as clients know that question's coming up, at that point, we've kind of integrated the question. Like there is a version of the therapist that's represented in our minds. It's confusing for people because it brings them out of the narrative of the story. And how did that make you feel? It creates a break and it's like, oh, actually, now I have to step back and think about it and respond to this question that I wasn't expecting and wasn't scripted. And it brings the person into authentic relationship with us as the therapist, but also with themselves where they need to check in. And sometimes it is just, well, I just got fired, Eoin. How the fuck do you think I felt?
Yeah, what are you fucking talking about?
Yeah.
What a stupid fucking question.
What a stupid question. And then if you really want to wind them up, you can say, I hear that you're a bit frustrated with me at the moment. And then
what's going on there?
What's going on there? But like it is in that the emotions, that's where the relationship happens. But people aren't used to exploring or checking in with themselves. Like they might think it's obvious, but actually naming a feeling
Yeah.
is so powerful.
Yeah, because I think there's a difference between what you described about someone giving you the series of events that has happened and what's actually gone on externally for them. I tend to say to clients, it sounds like you're living in your head. And there's such a big difference between telling someone exactly what's happened, who said what's gone on, what then happened, what was the result of that. When there's a big argument, and then it comes into, it's like that thing where I think it was Gabor Mate that had said there's 3 levels of knowledge, and it's your intellect, your heart, and your intuition. And in an ideal world, they'd all be communicating with each other and working together. But I find sometimes when clients come in and they say, I don't know, it's because their own emotions are not connecting to the story and they just know what's happened in their mind.
And sometimes people don't trust themselves. They've learned not to trust themselves. So they're waiting for that feedback for somebody else to tell them, like, this is how you should feel. This is how you should be behaving.
This would be an okay response. Yeah.
This is the okay response. And very often we are trained into that when we have parents who either allow us to have emotions or don't allow us to have emotions. Like, boys don't cry. You shouldn't cry. Don't get upset. It's okay to be angry. As an angry boy, that's fine. And girls, the reverse. Girls can cry but can't get angry.
Yeah.
And that conditioning happens from a very, very young age.
Like, boys will be boys, that kind of thing as well. It's like, well, of course he's going to get angry because he's a boy. And of course she's going to be crying because she's a girl.
Yeah.
You can see that as well when with people that have siblings of different genders as well. It's like, at times you can recognize where they've learned that conditioning of, oh, my sister would always get really upset, or my brother has a temper. Like, that's, I hear that a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. From your sister.
Yeah. My sister does get very upset. Oh, no. Let's not go there, Eoin.
There's a family WhatsApp that you're not in.
Yeah, not a Reddit forum for me. It's a family WhatsApp. That's fine.
Okay. So that kind of conditioning, or the allowance of emotions, there is this idea that people have that our emotions are kind of binary, one or the other, off or on, yes or no.
Yeah.
And I very often say to people, and I don't think I've had anybody who hasn't been able to relate to this, the felt sense that it is possible to love somebody and hate somebody at the same time.
Yeah. It's like our relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
no, that's so true. That's so true. I think as well, when I know there's so much going on emotionally, like, it's a visceral sense of, like, I've so many different emotions in this. If someone asks me, I might find it really difficult to articulate that actually I'm really angry, but I'm really sad, and I actually feel grief for the situation as well. Like, where do you even begin? So the easier, quickest thing to say is, I don't know. As a therapist, attuning to that, like, meet your client where they're at, can be quite confronting for a client. And it's like, okay, you don't know. Where are we going to go from here? It feels really final. But attuning to that, meeting them where they're at is really helpful, because the I don't know is so much more information than I think people realize.
I don't know is an answer.
Yeah.
In itself, it shows something. And for me, it's a much better answer than somebody convincing themselves that this is the way they should be, so this is the way they are because it's the way they have to be.
Yeah.
So that kind of opening up that's contained in the I don't know, I wonder, let's find out, as opposed to, well, this is what it is, this is what it's always been.
I think the I don't know as well, sometimes when at the beginning of when you start to explore it, it can be, I feel this, but I know I shouldn't, and I feel this, and I know I shouldn't feel that, but I do feel this. And that's even interesting. It's like, where are these shouldn'ts coming from?
Exactly. That's the depth of it. So there's the I don't know what's happening in the moment, and then where did it come from? And that's another level of I don't know. Like the connection that people have to the links to their past. Past is prologue. The client that comes in and says the past is the past and that's it, and I've dealt with it and it doesn't affect me anymore. As a humanistic therapist, I don't care about your past for the sake of you having a past. I care about your past only insofar as it's having an effect on you in the moment, and it's still causing you pain or distress or whatever it is. And understanding somebody's past helps us understand them in the present. And that's one of the tricky parts of, tricky is in sneaky, and there's many sneaky parts of psychotherapy, but one of the most obvious sneaky parts of psychotherapy is as a client is sharing themselves with us and helping us to get to know them, they're also hearing themselves explain themselves.
I love that as well. I think, there's so many different theories. There's so many different things that we can use. There's so many different tools and activities. But actually them saying things out loud most of the time in my experience is where, I think you said this before, is where the magic happens. And now I've adopted that saying. But like, that's where they kind of go, that's really weird to say out loud. Never heard myself say that. Didn't realize that that's how I felt.
Yeah.
The most simple moments.
Just getting us back to the I don't know. What's curious for me is the wisdom that the client holds and doesn't know that they hold. So if I'm asking a client, how do they feel about whatever, and they're not able to name something for me, they might have kind of implied it very clearly in the previous 5 sentences.
Yeah.
And what they're saying might prompt me to say, well, when you mentioned this, I was hearing that you were disappointed there. Oh yeah, disappointed. That's a feeling. I was disappointed, and maybe there was a bit of sadness there. Yeah. Okay, I was saddened. Would maybe a bit of betrayal or maybe a bit of anger, and like at the start of a contract, I'm kind of conscious that some clients that come in, they're not psychoeducated clients. They don't know how to be a client. They don't know the language of therapy. So I want to model for them maybe what hasn't been modeled, that these are feeling words. This is how you make a link. I wonder, is it because of that? Oh, yeah. And then as the therapy progresses and they're getting more comfortable with owning their past and integrating themselves, that they're able to much more quickly kind of recognize what we talked about before.
And even what you described about someone could be saying something and not realizing it. Also that, things like tone of voice, holding your breath maybe when you're asked something, even naming that to someone within a room. I've found over time when I start naming those things to people go, I actually noticed I was holding my breath there. Or I noticed that my tone of voice went really high pitched when I said that. And I think that is because I was afraid, or I felt upset, or I felt angry.
I think that sometimes people look at the complicated reasons without just kind of looking at the evidence that what's in front of you, sort of like the A to B to C, but then interpreting that and putting it together and adding the emotional context. Emotions are a completely different language, and they're like an almost a parallel dimension that we can't get our heads around. And I'm used to thinking about things. I'm not used to feeling about things. But then when we normalize it and actually, well, this happened, I mean, it's kind of understandable if then you felt unhappy, sad, betrayed, whatever it is. Somebody gets passed over for a promotion and their best friend gets the job and they hadn't told them that they were applying for the job. Just a scenario off the top of my head.
So fucking random. Okay.
Yeah. That could provoke feelings of sadness and betrayal and anger and frustration and failure, and all of these things could be wrapped into it. But quite often a client will be, well, yeah, I was pissed off and it just happened. Now I have to move on and, one foot in front of the other, get onto the next thing.
I have to be happy for them as well. That is that pressure, that external pressure of like, yeah, I know it is shit, but I'm happy for them.
Yeah. Okay, so we're moving on then to the It's Giving section. And Rachel, if you'd like to take it from here.
It's giving the Brady Bunch. Thanks so much, Eoin, for that fantastic... Oh my God, that laugh was so interesting. That sounded like the Brady Bunch. It's giving the Brady Bunch. For this section, I wanted to talk a little bit about the roles that we play within our families have a huge impact on what comes up in the room. But I think sometimes the role we play, even off the back of what we said about the I don't know, right? If we take the I don't know example, that can give us a really good insight into where we sat within a family dynamic and the roles that we played in a family dynamic. If I take my own example, I'm the youngest child. And the message that I always received was, oh, you're the youngest, you're spoilt. You're the youngest, you got everything. You're the youngest, you had it easier. When actually the role that sometimes the youngest child plays is being the facilitator of everybody else's drama or bullshit that they bring in. And I think that can cause a little bit of confusion in a room, we say, as a client, when it's like, I was the youngest, so I had it easier. Those ideas are kind of sometimes a little bit subconscious in the back of your head, that it can be perceived that you have an easier life, when in reality, like, that can end up in patterns in adulthood of being like, actually, I've watched all of these things unfold. I'm clearly talking from personal experience here, but I'm watching these things unfold, and you almost fall into this role of facilitating everybody else's life and forgetting about your own needs. But that message that you get all the time is, you're spoiled because you're the youngest one. Parents kind of aren't as strict. That's one that I often hear. Oh, parents aren't as strict with the youngest child. Do you hear that a lot, Owen?
I do.
Yeah.
That accusation of being the youngest child, I think that comes from people who attach to cliche of what the oldest child is, what the middle child is, what the youngest child is. And like they've heard these things and they think they have degrees in psychology. And actually, there isn't good evidence that an older child looks like this and a middle child looks like
No.
that, and a younger child looks like the other. If somebody is taught within a family to question things and to wonder about what's going on and given the space to be curious, they are learning those skills to question. If a child is told, you don't have a choice, do what you're told, that's it, then they're not going to be able to check in with themselves and they're not going to be able to give you an answer for the I don't know. Sometimes for the older child, sometimes for the middle child, whoever it is, there is a role within the family for somebody to be certain that the others are going to look to, that they know what they're doing.
The example,
The example. There are going to be other people within the family who are the jokesters. There's a bit of tension in the air. I'm going to take the tension out of it by running across the sitting room with my pants around my ankles. Or whatever it was.
Yeah. And that will lift everybody's mood, which makes me feel a lot better. You know, that's a learned behavior as well. That's a pattern as well.
Yeah. Your mother would like you to come out of that at some stage, though. So if that was,
It's never
if
happened
that
in
was
my family.
if that was a pattern that you could stop doing, you know, people would appreciate it, especially your housemates. So what you say about the idea that parents are less strict with the younger children, I think it changes from family to family. And the biggest tool that we have in psychotherapeutic work is curiosity. So if we imagine that we have a middle child coming in front of us that is from a middle class family or a poorer family, and we tell our story about what their life is like, and then we work off that basis, the relationship isn't going to work out. Like we need to find out what was it like for that person within that family structure and what was going on there.
It's a good point. I think even, for example, like the expected response, and I'm speaking for the youngest children here because I am the youngest child, the expected response of, oh, I'm the youngest child outside of a therapy room, we'd say, is, oh, you're the baby. Oh, you were looked after. Oh, like mollycoddled. And when you don't get that, or I hope you don't get that within a therapy room, you know, those assumptions, it really makes you redirect that curiosity and be like, actually, what was it like for me if I'm not getting that response right now, that I was mollycoddled and everything was gentle and everything was easier for me, then the reality is, what was it like?
Yeah, that dynamic and what we pick up on. I think there is a protectiveness that clients have with their family, like we all have with our families.
Yeah.
Clients come in and they will tell me that they've had a good childhood, they've had a perfect childhood, nothing to complain about, don't know why they're there.
Silver spoon,
And yeah. And then kind of coming in, as the defenses come down, they start recognizing that their childhood wasn't perfect because no person's childhood was perfect. Every parent out there is a parent and a human and have their own stresses and their own relationships that they have to deal with. You know, hopefully they do their best to protect a child from with the skills that they have. But therapy isn't about
blame,
pointing out, pointing out where the parents went wrong and fishing for the bad stuff, but more like painting a fuller picture with all of the colors. So it's not just black and white. And like the person can tolerate, actually, there was this thing that I was upset about. But generally, it was okay.
And I think the defenses that you described as well, I find a lot of the time they're more for other people than they are for themselves. Defending the family and the idea that we have in our minds and the memories that we have couldn't possibly be touched in any way that is different from what their narrative is and what they remember. And I think it can take a long time for that to set in. You know, the logical part of it is, yes, we all know that people aren't perfect, but the reality is there's a lot more context to my emotions and my experience than I think I was willing to admit. And that would therefore mean that it's not about blame, it's about accountability on all parts and the reality of life. Shit happens.
We treat our friends differently to the way that we treat ourselves generally, but logically we know we're the same as other people, but emotionally it's like, well, yeah, but that doesn't apply to me.
No. Yeah.
And within family, it's okay for you to have a difficult relationship with your mother, but it's not okay for me not to have a good relationship with my mother, because that says something about me as a child.
Mm-hmm.
And even though I'm 50, I am still the child of my mother.
Yeah. Falling back
Like,
into those roles as well sometimes, when they can be highlighted when you go home. If you've done a bit of therapy, or done, even if it wasn't just therapy, work on yourself, and you've been curious about your past, it's like you can see things a lot more clearly, and you can feel yourself falling into those roles again. I know, I live in London. I know when I go home, I am the youngest child there. Like, I feel like the youngest child there, and I can feel myself, some of those kind of traits coming up of like, when I go home and I'm like, oh God, I feel like I'm 6 again. This is so annoying. The reality of everything kind of hits you when you go back and you fall into those dynamics. And I think the last episode we spoke about Christmas in particular, everybody's back around, all of the family history is all in one one room, and it's all very intense, and it's like, oh my God, Auntie Mary won't stop fucking talking.
We're going to have some fun with that for our Christmas episode. Absolutely. I think you mentioned earlier about like the oldest child and the youngest child. There is a reality of the experience of the parents, and like they don't know what the hell they're doing for the first child.
Yeah.
And that child can very much have strict boundaries and be kind of overly supervised.
Yeah.
And there is the idea of the youngest child being spoilt, but actually by the time the parents have the youngest child, like number 3 or number 4 or whatever, like they might have forgotten about it, right? You're off in a field somewhere, and sure, hopefully you'll survive. That's what it was like back in my day.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Back in the heyday.
back in the heyday, yeah. There isn't necessarily the boundaries, or the parents have realized that their children are resilient and they don't break it the first time they bounce off the ground, and it's like, well, okay, we can give a little bit more leeway. And then that can create the resentment of the older child, that the younger child gets to do, like they had to earn their freedom, where the younger child just gets the freedom.
Yeah, but no, I also think, like, the older you get, and the more into adulthood that I'm even getting, the more you see your parents as being full human beings, and with lives and with stresses outside of having children. And obviously for parents, their main priority is their children and the well-being and the happiness of their children. But the reality of it as well is parents can't show up the same for each child, not just with the age gap, but also with the phase of life that they're in as people, not just as parents.
Absolutely.
What kind of jobs are they in? Are they under financial pressure? Are they having issues with their own fucking siblings, which they probably are, because families are complicated? What's playing into how they're raising their children at each point? Like, even if there's a year in between, like, things change so quickly. If there's a year age gap in between two siblings, a parent could be at a very different phase of their life for that year, and things from their own past might be coming up as well. Like, what's the information that they carry with them, or the context that they carry with them, not just from their childhood, but also from the context that they're in now as people.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you mentioned the siblings of parents, because what was in my head was that the comparison or the competition between siblings, but then the parents are also in competition with their own siblings. And the aunt's children, like your cousins, are doing such and such. Why can't you do such and such? And that's because your mother is in competition with her sister or her brother or whatever it is. And on top of that, the grandparent might be casting judgment over everybody.
Yeah, I was just going to say, and that time that's to prove or to please their parents, even though they're adults. It's interesting.
Yeah. And if you don't resolve the family drama, you're always going to be treated like the child that is still a child.
Yeah.
There was something I was listening to on the radio the other day, and the broadcaster was talking about like being 45 and presenting at this big conference, and his mother was there, and she straightened his tie before going up on stage, right?
Oh, bless.
So like no matter what age you get, like the mother is always going to see you as their child. And like that's fair enough, but then it's going to be much harder for them to move into an adult relationship with you if you don't bring yourself into an adult relationship with them
Yeah.
and start asserting different boundaries with them.
Yeah, that transition period can be really confusing as well. Because a lot of the time, you still live at home. So it's like, oh my God, I live here. I'm still in the same context. I'm still in the same amount of contact with these people. So how do I now loosen the reins of that 5-year-old child that I still feel like? And where are those boundaries? How do I navigate that? It can be so complicated, like emotionally and like logistically complicated, because you're still in the same house.
Yeah, that makes it so much more complicated, like living in the same house and like whether you're contributing to bills or paying
Yeah.
rent or whatever it is, like I would imagine it would be tough for people. So like we're talking about the family drama within the family, and one of the reasons why I wanted to name this It's Giving the Brady Bunch was because, yeah, I know, right? But they're kind of the paragon of virtue in American culture, like the Brady Bunch, where this perfect blended family where mostly everybody got along and like there was communication and support, and but there is the idea that the family that we are in is the normal family unit.
Yeah.
And it's only when we go outside and meet partners and hear what their families are like that we can make a judgment of,
Yeah.
well, either their family is crazy or my family is crazy.
Or both.
And
Yeah.
or both. And then you start taking the piss out of them, or they're introduced to your family and your family starts taking the piss out of them, and they're not used to that sense of humor.
Yeah.
And there is that kind of boundary in between, like, where is this coming from? Is it toxic or putting people down? Is it passive aggressive, or is it like is there love
Taking the piss. Yeah.
in the taking the piss?
Cultures are different as well. Like Irish people, I find, take the piss constantly. So sometimes it's like there's that assumption that, well, of course we're going to take the piss. We're Irish. Come into the family. We're all the same. We're all one unit. And then it's like, well, actually, no, there are individual people that don't joke like that. The culture of taking the piss all the time, or being quite casual, I find anyway, as Irish people, being really easygoing and whatever, can be damaging, because there's this pressure of, well, sure, you're grand. Oh, he'll sit down there, he'll have a cup of tea, he'll sit with us for 5 hours while someone plays the banjo and sings along, and it's like
Yeah,
that
yeah,
can be really fucking intense
yeah,
for
yeah.
people. Like some
I'm
people,
really comfortable in my family, so I don't know why you wouldn't be really
yeah,
comfortable in my family, because my family are sound and perfect.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, so we'll move on to our case study, family drama. So today we're meeting Justine, as Eoin mentioned earlier on. So, dear no clients were harmed, I've begun to notice something over the last few months that has really unsettled me and made me rethink a few things about how I was raised. My name is Justine, I am 43 years old, married, and a mother of 2 young daughters, Chloe and Gemma. The girls are 6 years apart, at aged 11 and 5. Gemma turned 5 a few months ago, and I find myself remembering in visceral detail what my life was like when I was 5. I never really understood why, but I always remember having a dull ache in my stomach, like a constant knot. I was the youngest of 3 sisters who were really chatty and extroverted. There was only a year and a bit between them, while I was 4 years further back. I remember the house being so loud, and often my parents would get really frustrated that my sisters would be misbehaving. Now I see Gemma idolizes Chloe, but she doesn't have a lot of patience with her little sister. She's turning into quite the teenager, and I can see Gemma feels really left behind.
There's a lot in that word, isn't there? She's becoming quite the teenager.
There is. Mark, my husband, can be impatient, and he's under a lot of pressure at work, as am I, and we are snapping at each other more and more. I feel like a failure. My sisters only remember me when they want something, and my mother judges my parenting, while my father never seems to have a kind word to say. When I catch the disappointment in Gemma's eyes when Chloe rejects her, or sees her pain if Mark is impatient with her, it breaks my heart. In a weird way, it also seems to elicit this immense sadness for myself that I don't understand. If you were to ask me last year, I would have said I had a great childhood, but now I'm not so sure. What the hell is going on? Make it make sense. Justine.
Wow. Like, I can see why you've been a bit emotional when I've been reading out these case studies, and I really feel for Justine. Like,
Mm.
there's an awful lot going on in this letter,
Yeah.
and there is a sadness.
Mm.
And I would just kind of like to take it up a little bit, and I just want to reassure Justine straight off the bat that what she is seeing is understandable.
Yeah.
What she's seeing is fairly normal and fairly common.
Navigating like the dynamic between like two kids is so hard on top of having a relationship as well. But like as a mother, I just think looking at seeing things and having them feel familiar when those
Mhm.
feelings haven't really come up for you. Now all of a sudden she's kind of seeing herself in a vulnerable little girl.
Mhm.
That's so sad.
Yeah, there's so many parallels in between
Mm.
her own family and the family she's created with Mark. And I wonder about him too, because like what their communication is like. What is Mark noticing? Because they're both stressed at work and they're both snapping at each other.
Mm.
So I wonder, do they get any time for each other? Like, what does a date night look like? Are they able to have date night? There is so much sadness in this. I want Justine to go out and have a bit of crack. Not like actual crack, right? But like Irish crack. Have a bit of fun.
Do you know what? As well, when
Don't
you're talking
start
about
taking drugs.
you're talking about Mark, I think she needs a night away from Mark. He's snapping at her and he's impatient with the kids. I mean, Owen.
I mean, they're snapping at each other, no?
Okay. No, they are.
Wow. Okay.
She did say, Mark, my husband, can be impatient. Didn't hear her saying that she was impatient. But no, they're obviously snapping at each other. There's something happening there as well. But even what she said about like witnessing her own sisters being very
Mhm.
chatty and extroverted, and then witnessing her parents get frustrated that her sisters were misbehaving. There's a lot of talk about other people in that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm reassured to some degree with that kind of recognition.
Mm-hmm.
She is empathizing so much with her youngest child,
Mm-hmm.
with Gemma, but also there's a recognition of, like, in a weird way, there's a huge amount of sadness there for herself.
Yeah.
And what I imagine with that is in her childhood, she did the best that she could. Her two older siblings were closest,
Mm-hmm.
and she had to survive as best she could.
Mm. But even the sisters will be misbehaving. It's not like she didn't describe the attention on the sisters as being super positive and amazing and incredible. Attention is attention regardless of what it is. And it sounds like in her childhood, she feels a bit forgotten maybe. Even though the
Mhm.
attention was negative, that's still attention elsewhere, regardless of the intention behind the attention, if that makes sense. But just that feeling of they got the attention from my parents doesn't sound like she really did.
Yeah. And like even that, her children misbehaving, she's describing kind of loud, boisterous, extroverted sisters.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't necessarily mean that they were misbehaving. And herself and Mark, they're dealing with their own stresses in their life at the minute and their pressures at work, and they're snapping at each other. So that could be providing a mirror for what was happening in her childhood as well.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe her parents weren't getting on as well, not necessarily because her sisters were misbehaving, but because there was other things going on that as children they weren't aware of or they didn't need to be aware of. And she interpreted that as her sisters are causing
Yeah, that's so true.
the friction.
Yeah.
The age gap in between herself and her older siblings
Yeah.
and the age gap in between Gemma and Chloe, that does represent how she felt that abandonment, that separateness, that isolation. Chloe probably has her own friends at this stage. Like there is that
Yeah.
line, she's being a bit of a teenager, and she's at that stage where she wants to move into the adult world and see herself more as a young woman
Yeah.
rather than a child.
Mm-hmm.
And Gemma kind of probably wants to follow in her footsteps, but can't just yet.
Yeah.
That replicates what Justine would have seen
Mm-hmm.
with her siblings as well, and that feeling of being left behind. I'm curious as well about the parenting and what's playing out there in between the parenting within her family
Yeah.
with Chloe and Gemma and the parenting of her parents and Justine and her siblings, where Justine finds herself replicating those things that her mother would have said to her and turning into her mother. and whether in some
Oh,
ways
true.
Mark is fulfilling the role that Justine's father fulfilled, where
Uh,
there
yeah,
doesn't seem to be any fun fun within the
yeah,
family unit. Like everybody together. If it's everybody together, there is still a bit of a fight for time and
attention.
attention, and
Yeah,
actually kind of mother-daughter days or father-daughter days with the individual child might be really good for everybody to connect so that they have individual relationships within the larger context of the family.
yeah. I think at a point like this, where obviously there's a lot of tension in the house, it can sound like an ideal situation to for us to go on a big family
Yeah, yeah,
day out,
yeah, yeah,
go on a
yeah,
holiday, go all together. Each individual dynamic can be way too much. And I think when you're within a dynamic where you're all obviously living under the same roof, it can just feel like, where do I begin? It's suffocating and everyone is just feeling the
yeah.
negative energy.
Things don't need to be so fucking serious. Like actually just going out,
Yeah.
like I mean, okay, bougie if you can take a day trip with all your kids and do whatever, but like most families
Mm.
are time poor to have
Yeah.
individual trips with people, whatever about the finances of it. But it's like, sometimes I'll say to a client, oh, go for a walk and take an hour to yourself. And they're looking at me going, oh, and how the fuck do you imagine I can
Yeah. They're
take an
like,
hour
when?
to myself?
Yeah, I'm up at
Yeah,
5 and I'm asleep at 11. What do you mean? I've work and I
exactly.
have kids. And yeah, like
So,
it's
but
completely
it's
unrealistic. Yeah.
being able to do something that might be a bit normal, but to inject a bit of fun into it, like to be a bit silly. There is that silliness, that immaturity, that
Hmm.
fun that we forget
Play.
about,
Yeah.
but we do carry inside us as adults. Some of us forget about
Yeah.
more than others. But being able
Mm.
to show that to our children provides a whole different level of connection. And when that's there, then they're more likely to be able to come to you with other things.
Hmm.
That it doesn't have to be dark and serious
Definitely.
all of the time. I just wanted to say, like, to go back to the mother judges her parenting and how difficult that is for any parent, mother or father,
Mm.
that there is a lot of pressure that we need to be the best that we can. Otherwise, we're going to fuck up our children. I have a friend of mine,
Yeah.
when they were expecting their first child, he was concerned, well, Owen, we're going to fuck them up as least possible and trust that they're going to be okay. But we're going to make some mistakes, and sure, if they need to go to therapy, they'll need to go to therapy. But like that's it. And I
Hmm.
thought that was really wonderful because
Yeah.
they care about their child. They're going to do their best, but there is a recognition that
Yeah.
they're going to make mistakes along the way. It's not about avoiding the
Yeah.
rupture, but being able to repair it. The reason why the
Hmm.
mother is judging her parenting is because her parenting provides a mirror back to the mother of the things she did or didn't do when she was raising Justine. As Justine is, her history is being activated when she sees her children
Hmm.
at the same age that she was while all of this is going on. Justine's mother could equally have stuff
Mm.
being activated for her as she sees her daughter parenting the grandchildren. It's just the pattern being replicated again and again down through the generations. So the
Hmm.
grandmother was critical of the mother, so the mother is being critical of Justine. Pattern going
Hmm.
down along, and Justine being able to show curiosity to the mother and go, well, what was it like for you when these things were going on? How did you know what was the right choice to make, or how did you know how to parent? And if the
Yeah.
mother is available to have that non-defensive conversation, again, there can be a connection and a collaboration in it.
Yeah. And it's a new kind as well. Not something that you would have experienced with for the mother, with her daughter being in a new
Hmm.
role, being a new mom and having these difficulties. And potentially for her mom, she might be saying, shit, yeah, it was really hard. And I felt like I absolutely did everything perfectly because that was the
Yeah,
expectation. But it was actually really
yeah.
hard and I really struggled. I do hear that a lot from mothers saying, I now appreciate my mum so much more, or I've connected in a totally different way to my mum now because I have that
Hmm.
experience of having children. We can have different kinds of conversations that, you know, they wouldn't have had if it was just a mother-child and relationship before having kids.
I don't want to forget about Mark in this. Things might be being activated for him as well. Like, it's so common
Yeah.
if we see like a child going to first communion, or a child going through some major life event that we also went through, that is going to naturally bring up memories of what it was like for us to go through that thing. Sometimes, like we
Mm.
were kind of mentioning a little bit briefly, that comparisons and between siblings, between parents, siblings. And
Yeah.
back in my day, this is what would have happened. And like things progress and move on. And some things that were really, really damaging from back in the day have thankfully been left behind. But there were also a lot of theories from back in the day that were the best evidenced theories at the time. And there is no
Yeah.
fault in the parent for actually reading the current books that were available and putting so much effort into being the up-to-date parent, and now those theories being kind of
Yeah,
cast
and that's
aside.
what people are
Yeah,
doing
yeah,
now as well.
absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, people are doing that now as well, and maybe in 10 years' time, people might be saying, "Oh my god, listening to people, what a terrible
Yeah, yeah.
idea." No,
Gentle
but, you know, it's like
parenting. What the
people
fuck?
will yeah, what the fuck? Yeah, but yeah, I think that's people do their best for the most part with the
Hmm.
information that they have. And sometimes when we reflect on it, it's like, "Oh shit, that was really, really now
Hmm.
feels really wrong." But actually that's not what it felt like for the parent anyway at the time, because that's probably what people were putting on TV and telling you how to raise your kids and how to speak to them and
Yeah,
how to
yeah,
discipline
yeah,
them. They were actually doing their utmost, but now it may feel very different, and
yeah.
the messages are very different, and the
If you're not doing what I'm doing, you're a terrible parent, because you have to be. Because if you're not, it means I'm a terrible
Mhm.
parent for doing what I'm doing. As a parent, your job is to keep your child alive. Basically,
Yeah.
do that, and you're
It is, yeah.
succeeding. You're
You're
good.
good.
You're good.
You're
Yeah.
good. Do that, job done. Well
Anything
done.
else that you can add to that, like with the emotional support and the emotional intelligence, and like
Mhm.
having space for them, like don't abuse your children. But
Yeah.
like that
Yeah.
includes neglect. Pay attention to them, feed them, water
Mhm.
them, give them shelter, and that's all right. They don't need to be in the best schools with the best job with the best toys, whatever it is. Give
Mhm.
yourselves a break. It's giving the Brady Bunch. I think I have seen half an episode of the Brady Bunch in my life. Like, I'm aware of the television show, I'm aware of the concept. I've never watched a full episode. I can only imagine what it would be like to look back on that now and see what messages are in it.
Mm.
There would absolutely be some very, very troublesome things in it. Really, like, because it's a
Mm.
snapshot in time, isn't it? And things are very,
Yeah.
very different.
Mm.
So the last line, if you were to ask me last year, I would have said I had a great childhood, but now I'm not so sure. What would you say to that?
For me, it's a little bit sad when I hear people say that, because it's like it's
Hmm.
not one or the other. You don't have to have had a good or a
Hmm.
bad childhood. Like, if you consider the last year of your life, there's going to be good parts of it, and there's going to be not so good parts of it, and there's going to
Hmm.
be really terrible parts. Because it's in the past, I think it can be quite easy to paint something entirely with the same color of, if I have any type of negative feelings about this period of my life, then that means it was not
Sure.
good. And that's not the case. There were parts of it that might be impacting you now, might be coming up for you, but that doesn't mean that you didn't have really lovely experiences. It makes me sad when she said, "But now I'm not so sure," to change an entire narrative based on things that are coming up for her now. It feels a bit
I think you're
extreme
wrong.
for me.
Yeah,
Really.
yeah, I do. Absolutely.
Go on.
As you know, I am a bit of a strange therapist. I've
Yeah.
named this to clients, that sometimes if I'm with a client and they start to cry, I start to smile.
Mm.
It's not
It's
because I'm
weird.
a sadist. It's not because I enjoy that the person that I'm with is in pain, but
Yeah.
I can really admire the fact that actually they're getting in contact with something that maybe they have been in contact with before.
Yeah.
And so I'm encouraging and validating their feelings. And there is
Yeah.
there is a love in sadness. When she's saying, I would have said I had a great childhood. Now I'm not so sure. And she's writing this letter into us. What I'm hearing is, I don't know and I'm curious.
Okay, yeah, I suppose I
For
interpret
me,
it differently,
that's
yeah.
progress. Instead of having the fixed idea, I had a great childhood, she has
Yeah.
now access to a level of maturity and integration that hasn't been before, where she's able to have a holistic view of, actually, my childhood was pretty good. And that is coming from the foundation that was provided to me in my childhood. So, maybe it wasn't so bad. But actually, it does include some disappointments. It does include some loneliness. And maybe I can start having a look at
Yeah,
that
that
not
not.
exactly. And when I had it in my mind of kind of adding fun and adding a bit of silliness, I would be encouraging Justine to have her younger self in her mind when she is playing with Chloe and playing with Gemma and allowing herself to be a bit silly and kind of just holding in her imagination that this is for that younger part of myself that also felt lonely. And that's where some real
Yeah.
healing could begin.
Holding a little bit of space for the girl that seems to have been forgotten. That's kind of the lovely thing about inner child work, is it can feel like it's all very much in the past and gone and done with, and there's nothing you can do about it. Yeah, but you can't change any of the events that happened, but you do have the ability to meet those needs now in different
You can't
ways.
change the past, but you can change how you feel about the past, and you can change how it affects us today. That part of Justine that carries the loneliness, she doesn't need to carry that anymore. She can recognize, and that part of her can realize, actually, I'm not there anymore. I can feel
Yeah.
connected and I can feel supported. Again, I would also encourage like that conversation with Mark and being able to check in and see what's going on for him, because it's very easy to say he's stressed out at work, full stop, and that's it. Like, I
Yeah.
wonder what else might be going on for him. How is it for him being a father of two young girls and one becoming a teenager?
You're very concerned at Mark.
Well, I mean, bless him, he only got a line in the thing.
You only got a line.
I'm
No,
not
I agree.
taking
That's kind
away
of,
from
yeah.
Justine. And I suppose in bringing Mark in, I also want to remind her that he's in it too. It's not all on her. She doesn't have to have
Yeah.
all of the responsibility. She doesn't have to keep everything flowing.
That's true.
That she can share that out with people.
Definitely.
I hope that our response has been useful to Justine. And for all you real listeners out there, I hope you've gotten some sense of it as well.
I feel like, no matter what was said in this episode, like everyone can relate in some sense of the word.
Thanks very much for joining us again today. I hope you've enjoyed yourselves as much as we have.
Please do follow, like, share, and give it to someone that needs a little bit of therapy. Please, we would love to hear from you as well. So please do send us an email if you have any dilemmas that you would like us to go into.
We'll meet you again for our next episode, when we're going to be taking a look at endings. And it is kind of very relevant because this is the end of episode 5. Myself and Rachel had agreed that we were going to do 6 episodes in the season. And so our next episode will be our final planned episode. You're lucky you're going to get a bonus Christmas one as well.
Oh, can we please dress up as Santa Claus and Mrs. Claus
Absolutely,
for
you can.
Christmas?
Yeah.
For that episode.
No problem. We hope that you have enjoyed this season so far. If you think that you would like a second season, if you think that you'd be interested in hearing more of Rachel take the piss out of me, please do leave a comment, engage with the podcast, let us know what you'd want to hear, and share. As usual, and as always, no clients were harmed. Look after yourselves and each other. And if you're going to take the piss, make sure that it's not toxic.
Thank you.